Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochrane Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompiani. So much to talk about tonight. Pirates' Jung Ho Kang is back in the country. How about Nick Kingham? We'll get into the Steelers draft and also Baker Mayfield. But the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochrane Sports Showdown will be the Penguins, who lose today. Some controversy involved. And here is your panel, left to right, television screen. We go far left is Will Graves, outstanding journalist with the Associated Press. Ron Cook from the Cook and Pony Show, midday on the Fan, and columnist with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette in the middle. And then it's Chris Muller from Starkey and Muller, 2 to 6 every day on 93.7 The Fan. So let's get right into it, gentlemen. Penguins deserve to lose this game because they did not play as well as Washington. But they also did not deserve, in my opinion, what we saw with that goal. That was a goal, but it was waved off. So, Ron Cook, your thoughts on that, and why have replay? To me, it was definitive. Sullivan agreed it was 100%. Why didn't they give it as a goal?
Well, first of all, I agree with you, Bob. They deserved to lose. That start was so wretched, and it's hard to believe they've done that 2 games in a row and then just try to turn it back on. It sure looked like a goal to me. I don't know what they were looking at in headquarters. I'm with you. If a replay shows it's a goal, it's got to be one. Now, I know they didn't call it on the ice, and they're probably going to say there wasn't enough evidence to overturn it. I wish I would have got that second goal. Letang had a shot in the second period that just creeped wide. If they'd have got the second goal to make it 3-2, who knows what happened. But they dug themselves a hole, and you shouldn't put yourself in a position where the referees are going to determine the outcome.
When people are getting to the point on social media where they're talking about things like the parallax effect as far as how you can explain why that wasn't a definitive replay showing white between the puck and the red line, I think we're getting to the point where either you need to have like a definitive buzzer where as soon as, they have the technology. I don't even know how it would manifest itself, but you could have a way where you determine that this is definitively a goal and take all the guesswork from Toronto out of it. I thought it was a goal. They've called lesser plays goals. I mean, I'm a huge supporter of replay under the auspices of get it right first and foremost. But when you don't get it right, in my opinion, when it's pretty obviously right, then replay has failed miserably and needs to be fixed again.
Right. I mean, to me, 2 things here. The Jesse James rule, people were bringing that up as an example of Pittsburgh getting hosed again. I mean, at least in the spirit of the rule of the Jesse James rule, the call was correct. The rule was terrible, but the call was correct. Here, what are they doing with replay if you can't look at a goal that's over the goal line and it's not a goal, or see another guy, and I know this is going to come up in a second, line up another player with his shoulder, look directly at his head, then hit him with his shoulder in the head, as Tom Wilson did on Dumoulin. Look at it on replay, no penalty in the moment, and then no penalty on replay. What are those guys doing up there? What's the point of replay if you're not going to even attempt to get it right? Because this is what's going to happen. There's going to be a tweet out from player safety either tonight or tomorrow that Tom Wilson's going to have a hearing and then he's going to miss a game.
And
how can you I'm not arguing that, but how can you suspend a guy a game but get it wrong on the ice in the moment when you can go back and look at it?
I'll be
the NHL in a nutshell. It's just madly
I'll be surprised if he's suspended.
He should be suspended.
I was not horrified by that hit. In my opinion, Dumoulin turned into him, and he's coming full speed at that point. I don't know what he was supposed to do. The one that really bothered me, 10 times worse, was Matt Niskanen trying to take out Gensel's knee. I mean, I thought that was one of the worst things I've seen all year. That went unpenalized, too. You can't knee-on-knee a guy like that.
I thought they were both bad hits. I still don't think Tom Wilson's absolved. And Wilson and Ovechkin teamed up for exactly the same kind of hit in the Blue Jackets series where they sandwiched somebody who was in a position where it wasn't ideal. You can pull up and not have a double-team hit there. They didn't the first time. They didn't against Dumoulin today. And on first look, I thought that the Guentzel hit wasn't that bad because I couldn't tell what happened. But on replay, Ron, I'll agree with you on that one. That was a really bad play. The NHL, once again, though, continues to drive home 1 point above all else. When it's the playoffs, it reverts to old-time hockey in large measure, and that's the way the old guys running the game want the game to be played.
Whether it was dirty or not, if he's out, it's a huge loss for him. This was everyone's worst nightmare going in, that they don't have enough depth on defense. All they have is Matt Hunwick, who's really played in the NHL level, and I don't know what you guys
Andre
think.
Padan, don't shortchange him.
Yeah, I think they're in real trouble if he's out. Now, he may be ready to go tomorrow, Tuesday night. I don't know, but if he's out for a period of time, it's going to be very difficult. Of course, I'm the guy who said they couldn't win last year.
He's their best defenseman. Let's put it on. He's their best defenseman.
If we had gone in on Thursday at 7 o'clock and said they get no Malkin and they get out of there with a split,
Be happy.
I think you'd be okay with that. I mean, look, if they lose Dumoulin, he is definitely going to be a loss. But look, they won a cup without Chris Letang last year. So I don't want to, and I know your buddy Starkey wrote a column today.
Oh, buddy, whoa.
About how
Let's keep the strong language out of this, Will. Keep the strong language out of this
Sergei Gonchar compared Dumoulin to Nick Lidstrom. I'm not going to go that far, but he's an important cog, but they can overcome it. And if you get 71 back, I think that sort of evens out. It's a loss, but it's not catastrophic.
I want to go back to really
that's going to go. I got to move on, and I want to move on to goalie interference because this is something that I don't think anyone understands. Quite frankly, there was no goalie interference. I think Matt Murray thought so, but it wasn't. Will, when you look at goalie interference, what do you expect? We saw it in the Vegas game last night. That was a little different than this, but what was your take? Was that a right call? I thought it was correct not to call it.
I thought it was, I think I tweeted out, like, if that's goalie interference on the thing on Murray today, they should just burn the rule book, which maybe they did later when they didn't penalize Wilson for his hit. I just think that happens frequently. How many times do goalies get, there's contact with a goalie where there's a scrum around the neck and a guy that doesn't have the puck makes contact with the goalie? It's like calling traveling. Is it a penalty? Maybe, but it's also like calling traveling in basketball in the playoffs.
Did you think that was a scrum? He reached out with his
stick. He poked. I played hockey. I played hockey, and that just was something that we did. I didn't get called on it in rec league.
I think I could buy the argument that he had time to set himself again and make the save. And if you want, it was definitely interference. I mean, he pulled his leg out with his stick. Now, are you going to argue Murray had time to get back to make the save? I'll listen to that, but I thought it was an interference penalty, but the timing of it maybe worked in the Capitals'
It was a blatantly stupid play by Connolly that if the
had
shot
nothing to do with the play.
If the shot comes in, I'll say a half to 3/4 of a second earlier than it did, before Murray clearly resets himself,
then it's interference.
It is and should be called as goalie interference because he took a blatant whack at his leg and Murray clearly had to readjust. The fact that he had a split second, like actually a full second in real time at least, to reset himself is why I don't think it should have been called. It's still an unbelievably stupid play.
No, I agree that it was. I mean, look, it was sort of. I agree that it was stupid. But look, if this was, Patrick Hornquist doing this, what are we saying here? I mean, let me like you guys. What are Penguin fans saying? They're saying that's not interference.
That's
Holtby had a chance to reset. I mean, look, it's a ticky-tack play that they don't call it in the playoffs.
That's with every call. If Hornquist hit one of their guys like Wilson hit Dumoulin, it's a great hockey play. It depends on your perspective.
It's not.
That's every call.
It's still headshots. They want to get him out of the game. They got to be definitive about this, and I would be shocked if he wasn't suspended for one game.
I will be
Knowing
surprised
the
if he
Department
is.
of Player Safety, though, I shouldn't be shocked. We got to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Steelers and their draft. And what they did, it surprised a lot of people. We'll get into that and more when we continue right here. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown right here on KDKA. The #1 Cochran Sports Showdown is brought to you by #1 Cochran. Go one better. And by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. Have a greater hand in your health.